Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you're doing really well in this moment in time, and that whenever and wherever you happened to have been an hour ago when SpaceX launched yet even more satellites into space with perfect rocket precision. That incidentally just looks like a big fat flaming penis in space. But anyway, no matter where you were when that happened. I mean, there's a cream for that, okay? Wherever you were when that happened. I hope that you are able to assess new people coming into your life. And I hope that you're able to realize that people show us who they are pretty clearly, if only we have eyes to see and ears to hear. I have noticed this time and time again. Once I noticed this, I've noticed this time and time again. And before I noticed that people do this, I was always shocked, horrified sometimes even, when people turned out to be horrible people, because I always wanted to have a Pollyanna viewpoint of life, look at the good in people, look on the bright side, and then make excuses, because, you know, that's what people who are empaths tend to do. Oh, but he was so deep. Oh, but she had such problems. It was just her childhood that made her that way. No, people will always show you who they are. And I've said this again and again, over and over, like over the past year and a half. But it just was brought to my attention yet again today. This is absolutely 100% certain. Whether you are trying to vote for the right person out of two people that are pretty horrible people, or, you know, problems and more problems. Tweedledum, Tweedledee, Tweedledonald, Tweedle Biden, whatever. People will always show you who they are. And you have to keep an open mind in either way. You got to keep an open mind regardless. You know, whether they show themselves to be a wonderful person, or whether they show themselves to be a good person with problems, or whether they show themselves to be a flat out frickin' Nazi. Oh my God. There was a man that I met online a couple years ago, and at first he showed himself to be a pretty nice person, pretty boring, kind of normal air conditioner salesperson or something weird like that. I don't know, just maybe he was doing air conditioner repair. I don't know. It was very strange, and he's always been a little odd, and I was at first interested in him, and then after a few conversations realized I literally have nothing in common with him, and but I'll be friends, of course. I don't have a problem being friends with people. Help him with his English if he ever had questions or whatever. I don't, and he could have answered anything about keto, and it's okay, sure, I'll be friends with you, whatever. And he was very much like every day talking to me, every day. And asking me super boring questions. Did you eat? What'd you have for lunch? It's like, oh my God. Can we think of something even more boring? How did I tie my shoes today? Did I wear shoes today? I don't know. What's more boring than what did you eat for lunch? I mean, if that's all you gotta say to me or ask me, move it along, fella. But anyway, whatever. He's just a very boring person. But he acted like we're going to be a couple after just a few conversations. And I'm like, no, we don't have a whole lot in common, whatever. And then he was like, no, but really, I think we should meet. And then I didn't hear from him for about 2 weeks. He freaking ghosted me, which I don't really care because I had no emotional investment. I already made up my mind. We have zero in common, and he's a boring ass human being, and I'd rather be alone. Hey, I'm an introvert. I don't care. It's fine with me, And all of a sudden, after like 2 weeks, he started accusing me of being interested in other people, and maybe I'm dating somebody else, and maybe I'm sleeping around, and like all these weird and wild accusations. And I thought, well, something's wrong, He ain't getting enough fiber in his diet in the past 2 weeks or something. I don't know what's going on. But I'm like, no, A, we're not a couple. B, you're not my type. And C, it's none of your damn business. I could be sleeping with everyone in Ecuador for all you're concerned. It's not really one of your concerns because I'm not sleeping with you. You know what I mean? Even though I haven't changed my personality in the past 2 weeks, but clearly you've changed yours. So I just kind of forgot about him. I just kind of, and then after that, he would ask me boring questions again. What'd you have for lunch today? For another week or two. And then he somehow got bored with me. I said every single day, I don't eat lunch. I just made the conversation that much more boring. And then all of a sudden he contacted me last week, and I did mention this a few days ago. And he was just like, I've now moved to your city. We can be together. I'm like, oh, wow. When did you move here? He said, I moved here a year ago. And I'm like, oh, wow. He literally took his own sweet time in getting in touch with me. And then he's like saying weird stuff. Like he said, I know I'm already married. He says, how are you? Are you still single? And then he says, I know I'm already married. It's bad enough for me to have Spanish as a second language, and none of our conversations have ever been in English. So I'm trying to understand this guy, and he's super obtuse. He's not only boring, he's obtuse. He's really hard to understand, right? So I went through this weird conversation with him over the course of 3 days, in which finally he said, I'm not married. Where would you get this idea? So I had to forward his own message to him. And he says, I thought you were married. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Yet again, in 1 whole year, I did not change my personality. I did not change my personal goals. I did not suddenly randomly fall in love and get married within a year, which is insane. It was just have you never had a conversation with me in which you listened? All the times I said I'm focusing on my career, not looking for a guy, you're not my type, I'm not going to get married. It's so, fast forward to, I don't know, just 3 or 4 days ago, and he said, I'm not in air conditioning anymore. I'm like, okay, good. He's a little bit less boring. What do you do now? He says, I make dog food. I make organic dog food. I'm like, wow, now he's more interesting. All right. Entrepreneur. Yes. Good. Businessman. Yes. Awesome. Makes dog food. I'm like, oh, what's the name of your company? barf. That's what he said, barf. B-A-R-F, barf. I'm like, well, that's interesting. What does that mean in Spanish? And he says it means comida. And I'm like, no, it doesn't, because comida means comida in Spanish, right? It's like, oh, I have a new soup company. It's called Vomit Soup. Well, what does vomit mean? It means soup. It's like, no, it doesn't effing mean that. He's like, again, being super obtuse. Like, I don't know if he's being obtuse on purpose. But the final straw was today when I went to look at my WhatsApp, just because I like to see what the neighbors are up to. I'm a part of the neighborhood group, the second group. Some rando put me on the first group again after someone had taken me out of the first group. That was so odd. They like randomly added me, and I don't know who added me or why, to the now dead defunct group, but whatever. People are so strange, right? People will always show you who they are. And today this guy showed his true colors. His true colors being red and black and white. When he literally put as his profile picture on WhatsApp a picture of, brace yourselves, the Nazi flag. The Nazi flag. That's who he is. That's who he truly is at heart. He probably hates Americans, and he's just been trying to mess with me, trying to get into my head and into my heart so he could, I don't know, break my heart. I mean, he never had anything to do, like, he never had me. You know how some guys have you at hello? He lost me at, what'd you eat for lunch today? I'm not interested in these kind of boring ass conversations. Sorry. I'm too deep for that. You know, hey, I wish I was a simpleton. I would be happier, but no, I'm complicated and extremely profound, deep person. Like all of you listening to me, you're all the same. I mean, because if you were a shallow person, you would have like latered me a long time ago. Stopped listening to the show, right? So I was just like, oh my God. This is the second time I have encountered a Nazi sporting the old original Hitler-based German Nazi flag here in South America. This is the second Latino man I have met who is a Nazi. This absolutely freaks me the fuck out. I don't know what the hell. And I mean, during the Black Lives Matter movement, this massive social change movement across the whole freaking world, and he flies the Nazi flag now. So I said, it's a valid question. Are you a Nazi? And he's like, ¿Cómo? Like how? Like, because you're sporting a Nazi flag instead of your picture. It's a valid question. And he's like, oh, this is a symbol throughout history in many different cultures. This is just a local culture. I'm like, yeah, the original Jewish people have this as their symbol. Maybe not the original Jewish, but there was a sect of Judaism has this before Hitler ever came about. This was a thing in, I don't know what country, but in some old world country with, you know, so it was an original Jewish symbol, is an original Native American symbol in South America and North America. Throughout the world, that particular symbol has been used. It is a magical symbol, and that is why Hitler took it and used it for his own evil image, and he pretty much tainted it and ruined it for the whole fucking world. So, okay, I know the history of the symbol before Hitler was ever a twinkle in his parents' eye. But the thing is, why are you sporting that now? And why are you using that as your damn excuse when it's literally a picture of the Nazi flag, like with the red in the circle around that symbol? Like, don't lie to me. and act like you're not a damn racist sporting this flag during Black Lives Matter mass movement across the world. People will always show you who they are. They will always show you who they are. Like literally last week after he said I have my own dog food company, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. He said, yeah, you should come and move now to my farm on the coast and help me make dog food. I'm like, do you have a dog? He says, yeah, I've got a pit bull. I'm like, I'm allergic to dogs. I have asthma. And he's like, but you can still move to the coast and be with me. And I'm like, why would I do that? He's like, because I moved to Cuenca now. I'm like, it's like, you've been here for a year and you refuse to contact me. People always show you who they are, right? I'm just using him as an example because he's an extreme example of this. And it's hysterically funny. I'm showing my son everything. I'm like, look at this fool. He's like, oh my God, you can't be friends with a Nazi. I'm like, I know. So I'm trying to get him to clarify. And he just called me a cute friend. Linda, amiga linda. It means cute friend. I'm like, I said, are you Nazi? And he said, cute friend. Ha ha ha. It's like, usually the answer to are you Nazi is no, hell no, fuck no, I'm no Nazi, I hate Hitler. This is from my tribe, or this is from my village, or, some kind of freaking explanation that would make sense. And he didn't deny it. So I'm like, okay, well, people show you who they are. He just showed me that he's a guy that doesn't understand that the word barf means to vomit, and that's what he's feeding dogs. And he's a damn Nazi. I have no reason to believe he's not, because he won't say, no, I'm not. How could you ever accuse me of such a horrible thing? No, I'm not. That's evil. Hitler's evil. I'm not that. Right? That would be like a typical human response to that question, unless they're a Nazi, which is insane. I'm like, Hitler would have had you killed, right? You're not a pretty blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan race type person, right? Had you met him in person, he would have killed you, right? He would have killed me too. I mean, I'm Cherokee. I'm not that either. So, I mean, I don't know. People always show you who the hell they are. Usually, though, within the first day or two of conversations. So whether this is like a potential new boss, a new friend, someone you're going to think about maybe dating, anything, people will always let themselves be known to you. And I wanted to remind you yet again of this because it's so important to see it clearly. And we are having this moment, several moments in a row lately, of absolute mental clarity. So it's a good time to mention it. We're coming up now on the 8-8 Lionsgate portal, and we accept no hate. Okay, I just had to throw that in. Rhyme. It's really strange. It's so strange, man. Like, I've had some really odd duck encounters with people, like just, not recently. This was the most weird one recently, but I'm not even leaving the house. I leave the house like once a month to go pay my rent, I just can't even, I mean, the pandemic and things are getting worse. The second wave has come, and now they're claiming there's some worse kind of flu that's some other respiratory illness that's just like worse than COVID-19. I don't know if you guys are privy to the Alyssa Milano saga that just happened. Today she put a really crazy, scary post. She looked like hell. She had a respirator on and sending her love and light. God bless Alyssa Milano. I mean, hey, she's Phoebe on Charmed. My God, one of my favorite shows ever of all time. And she was always one of my favorite people. And she, I guess, got so freaking sick. And she describes the illness. And when she got tested for COVID-19, the test came back negative. And a week later, when she got worse, she got tested again just to be sure. And the test came back negative. And that was in April. And she got tested again recently because she's still going through all these crazy symptoms, even though she's not absolutely sick anymore. And the test came back negative, but the antibodies test came back positive. She did have COVID-19. So even if you get tested, even if the test results say negative, you could still freaking have it. And she's got these antibodies, and she is still sick, even though she's over the main part of the illness. Thank God. Thank God she's okay. But she said, you guys have no idea. It felt like an elephant standing on my damn chest. I thought I was dying. I really felt I was dying. That's what she said. And she tested for negative. Now, so, I mean, we've heard about all these tests that were sent from China, and they're all bullshit. You know, I mean, hundreds of thousands of tests. That's why so many people are dying. It's like no one knows if they have it or not. And the antibodies test tells you if you did or didn't. But it doesn't matter if you have had this and you have the antibodies for it. There's other strains you can still get. It does not even help to not get the other strains. It's that dangerous. And then these fools are out there saying, hey, I don't want to wear a mask. It goes against my human rights. You know what? It goes against everyone else's human rights to not get sick and die because of your lame ass. You know what I mean? It makes me so upset. Like, you know, these people are so selfish. You know, like, you know, if I was Ricky Gervais, I'd be like, they're a bunch of selfish. See you next Tuesdays, you know? Like he said that, or that was in one of it, Derek. I love that show, Derek. I finally finished watching the series yesterday. I couldn't get through one episode without bawling my head off. I mean, it's just he's just kind of a morose person, but he's very deep. He's another one of those profound, deep feelers. He's very empathic with people's emotions, and also he's hysterically funny. And only Ricky Gervais can get away with some of the shit he says. But oh God, he cracks me up. But anyway, yeah, I mean, really, some of these, I don't go seeking these videos out. I really don't. But they still keep coming across. Like yesterday, I saw an article about a guy who, you know, wanted to go grocery shopping, and I guess apparently the only mask he had was his KKK hat. It's like, what the hell? So he wears these really awkward, tight shorts. He's like super overweight, and he wore these really tight shorts that, I mean, this guy is all around he's a beacon for the fashion police, okay? I mean, I'm a beacon for the fashion police. I'm not saying that I'm any better, but I know I'm better than this, right? I know better, you know. But he had this Nazi pointy hat thing. Not Nazi, KKK, whatever, same difference to me. But he had this KKK hat over a green camouflage t-shirt and then these awkward black shorts. I'm sure I didn't see anything below his shorts, but I'm pretty certain his probably socks and sandals, like probably Birkenstocks and black socks. I'm sure of it. It's just the vibe this guy was throwing off. He was all kinds of confused. Like every one of his pieces of clothing didn't match anything else, not in color or style. I mean, it's how I dress at home. I mean, I'm not saying I'm any better, honestly, but obviously I don't have a KKK outfit. But it's like, why wouldn't he wear the whole robe? Why wouldn't he wouldn't even complete the ensemble? You know, just this. And finally, people asked him to take his hat off. And he took it off and paid for his groceries and walked out. And so he won the argument, I suppose. He won and got to not wear a mask while paying for his groceries. What a dickhead. I mean, sorry for me being judgmental about that, but what a dickhead. Oh my God, he's a real bellend. You know, but it's just weird. I mean, people are completely freaking out. They're emotionally invested in the idea of not wanting to wear a mask, and as a result, parents are bringing their kids to MAGA rallies, and no one's wearing masks, and people are coughing, and they're all in close proximity, and people are sneezing, and this is thinning of the herd. Literally, it's thinning of the herd. It makes me sad. The people are not more intelligent in my country. I'm very sad about that. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone in my country, I mean, most people, I think, are pretty intelligent in the U.S., but it's the ones that make the news that make us all look so bad. It's just... everything is crazy. My son and I talk about this every day, that, it's funny that, the fall of the Roman Empire was something to see, that was a big deal, and there's so much of our government is built up on principles of the Roman Empire, and now they're crumbling, it's falling. We all kind of saw the writing on the wall. We all kind of knew it was going to happen. But we're watching it. It's like in free fall, but in slow motion. It's painful to watch. A lot of innocent people. I mean, like that just are kind of caught in the crossfire of this. Coronavirus has reached the heartland, the rural America, the people that just live in the middle of nowhere, and they barely ever go into town or interact with other people. The farmers who create the food for people, And the coronavirus was in the shrimp. I don't know. My son told me, now I can't remember if it was shrimp going from Ecuador to China or coming from China to Ecuador. Either way, I'm not ordering any freaking shrimp. I'm not gonna eat seafood now, because some of these places were contaminated with the coronavirus. So now, I mean, it's scary. My son went out, he left the house today, and he got some first aid kits. He got some stuff that we could use in the event we have an emergency, because we're scared. I mean, all of our hospitals are completely filled up with people right now. If we had any kind of emergency whatsoever, he's like, I need to go get some iodine and butterfly stitches, and just in case, it's like, he's like, I love to cook, me, and I'm careful, but what if I cut myself and we can't go to the hospital because we don't want to get coronavirus? He's like, this is kind of a weird and scary thought. So I'm like, all right. So he's making a bug out kit in case we have to bug out, and he's been preparing for 10 years. Since he was 8 years old, he's been really and truly looking into everything we're going to need in the event of natural disasters and war and riots and political and social and civil unrest. And he's like, Mom, you know what? This has been my life purpose. It's one of my life purposes. He wants to be a photographer. He wants to be a chef. He's got wonderful dreams. He actually wants to get a degree in psychology too. Maybe be a psychologist. He's very intelligent, but he's like, you know what? I feel like I can't live a normal life. This is a year that technically he should have graduated from high school. And it's just, this is so strange. And he's like, I've been preparing for this kind of a scenario my whole life. I felt it. I knew it. It's crazy, you know? So, I don't know. I hope you guys are able to keep everything solid and structured in your life in spite of the coronavirus. I mean, I hope that you're able to keep enough food in the house so that if you couldn't get groceries for a month or 3, that you would be still okay. I mean, I think it's important. I really think we should have stored food. We should do as much as we can. I told my son, I think we should probably look into getting some seeds and starting to grow a garden inside of our wall, inside of our backyard, but also on the other side of the wall where everyone can share. Like, I don't like zucchini, but that stuff grows like crazy. Like, we can make zucchini bread. I'm like, we should probably start growing a lot of vegetables and sharing them with all the neighbors, and have a real community garden. It's just some thoughts that we have been tossing about. And even in that case with my son, I mean, he's showing his true colors. He wants to be prepared. He wants to make sure his mother is safe and taken care of. Thank you, God. He's, wanting to protect himself. He wants to protect his community and help other people. He'd be the first to stand up and defend anybody in this community. I'm so proud of him for that. He's such a good person. He's even a feminist. I gave him money to go buy used books in English. He found a bookstore, and he comes home with a book on gardening and a book on feminism. Like, wow. My kid is so cool. Oh my God, I'm so proud. I can't take credit for that one. I think it's because of his older sibling, who is also feminist and very socially and politically active. And they do get the political activity from their parents, me and their dad, but this new generation of kids, they're 18 just this year. 18 to 20-year-olds, this generation, literally, they're going to be the good and strong leaders of tomorrow, and they've already started, and every day I get more and more blown away by this. So, I heard from my brother today, thank God. I think I mentioned to you guys I was worried about my brother. I've heard from him, he's good. I was very down today physically, emotionally fine, but physically very down. I think that it's an ascension symptom to feel very run down, filled with anxiety and fear. I've been doing meditations and binaural beats to get rid of this free form floating anxiety and fear, but it's just an ascension symptom. If you're feeling it, that's what it is. My son has been feeling the weird hot and cold ascension symptom. We had a conversation about that today, and I wanted to mention it yet again to you guys. If you're just like laying in bed at night and all of a sudden one foot is hot and one foot is cold, or you're like really hot and burning up and you move the covers, now you're freezing, but you don't have a fever. This is actually a new ascension symptom. The other day I was laying in bed and my back felt very cold. Felt like somebody had put a big sheet of ice on my back, but yet my feet, my hands, even my head was hot, and even my chest area was hot to the touch, like not like a fever, but just really warm and almost like I'm too hot, but then my back was very cold. It's really strange. It's stuff I've never encountered before, and here it is. It's happening, and I've heard several people, Sheree and Kara, and a few other people on Instagram, which I can't remember right now, but a lot of people have mentioned this strange hot and cold thing. You'll get a flash of heat, almost like a hormone flash, and then all of a sudden you're cold again, and then it just keeps going back and forth, switching on and off. It's like our nervous system doesn't know what to do, and our kundalini is rising from being in the fifth dimension. It's crazy stuff, but I think that there's been a general malaise or melancholia energy, like being like a low-level kind of depression, which is understandable given the circumstance. Like, we can't leave the house. If we do, we have to wear a mask. If we wear a mask, we feel uncomfortable emotionally, and it's hard to breathe. The whole time we're scared. I did want to mention something, though, that I did discover, and I think I might have said this in the past few days, too. I'm like really out of it right now. I'm okay, but I'm so tired. I've been working my butt off in my classes all day, every day for weeks. And now I'm just tired today. I couldn't even finish my lessons for the day today. But, and something weird happened yesterday with our water. I think I had mentioned to you guys about 2 days we didn't have water. And it's been very funky and weird ever since we got the water turned back on. Like, one of our neighbors filled up her washing machine to put her clothes in. She went to put her clothes in to the water, and the water itself was like jet black. She's like, what the hell's going on? Why is my water coming out black? A couple of the other neighbors said it was coming out of the tap water in their kitchen as just black water. And when I went to brush my teeth yesterday morning, I rinsed my mouth out first, and I got a mouthful of gasoline in my frickin' water. In fact, I had even drank a couple sips of it before I realized, and I felt sick all day yesterday after that. And I just thought, well, maybe I'm hallucinating it. I don't know. I just woke up. I haven't had my coffee yet. You know, the stupid excuses that you make when something insane like that happens. And then I turned on my shower to go take a shower yesterday afternoon, and I let it run for like 5 or 10 minutes because it takes a while for it to heat up. And when I went back into my bathroom, my whole bathroom smelled like gasoline from the water. And it just blew my mind. It freaked me out. It's like, what the hell did they do to our water? Our water used to be extremely safe in the city. In fact, they've like won awards for the cleanest water in Ecuador here in this city. And suddenly it smells and tastes like gasoline. So, needless to say, I ordered my groceries today, like I do every Thursday, and they brought me 4 giant things of water. It's like, I don't know, 5 liters or something, I don't know. I think it's like 5 liters of water, and I bought 4 of them because we can't trust the tap water. We can't drink it. It's tainted. And even though today it didn't smell like gasoline, it still freaks me out. What's tasteless in the water that I can't taste that's making me feel sick? And I woke up feeling sick today. Like run down, like just really unable to think very well or clearly, hardly able to function. Literally hardly any energy physically, which is, it's not like me. Usually I'm very kind of ping-ponging off the walls, you know. Usually I'm pretty, you know, up and at 'em and able to move around. And the other thing was I was in absolute pain. Felt like I'd been beat up, like I'd been wrestling with somebody all night. And I have a big bruise on my leg, on my thigh, that I got a few days ago, but it's got now a really strange shape to it. It looks like a letter K with a it's like a circle around it. It's like, you know, the Circle K stores. It's very odd. The aliens labeled me a Karen. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what the hell this is. It's like a weird coincidence. I don't think it's like a brand or something, but it's just the way the bruise looks on my leg, and it's very odd. So I don't know, those are ascension symptoms. I don't know if having a bruise on your leg randomly out of nowhere is an ascension symptom or not. I think it's a sign of alien abduction. People have been reporting to me from all over that they are seeing aliens, like spaceships, UFOs. My friend in Canada said that she's been seeing them every night. She's been taking a lot of pictures of them every night, and her neighbor saw 3 UFOs yesterday, and the neighbor on the other side of him also saw the same UFOs. My own son has been seeing UFOs mostly around the moon, but yet in the sky away from the moon as well recently. And I think I might have seen one the other day, actually, also. And I've people have sent me pictures from New England area in the United States of spacecraft up there too. So I feel like the disclosure is going to come from the ETs themselves, and I feel like it's going to be like really, really soon. Super soon. Because they're letting themselves be photographed. They're more and more out there, available. So I just want to let you know that. All right, let me get into the space weather news. They have a clip on there of what a Perseid meteor sounds like. I'm not going to play it for you. I actually did listen to it. And to be frank with you, it is a god-awful sound, and it reminds me of my own tinnitus. It's very high-pitched sound, and it's a rather annoying sound, so I'm not going to play it for you. But if you want to hear what a Perseid radar echo sounds like with the moon bounce, it literally, the sound was so loud it bounced off the moon and then came back to Earth. And that's the clip that they have on spaceweather.com right now. It's just so strange. I don't know. So basically, tomorrow is the 7th of August. The Lion's Portal Gateway is on the 8th of August on Saturday. We are expecting solar wind to hit us tomorrow. And according to spaceweather.com, it's also going to hit on another solar wind burst has come our way, which will definitely hit on Saturday. So we have tomorrow and Saturday solar wind bursts, and cosmic radiation always is coming our way in addition to that. So just give yourself extra time to do anything that you need to do. If you have to be somewhere or go somewhere, give yourself extra time in case you feel sleepy. Splash water in your face, just kind of keep yourself awake. If you're falling asleep during important meetings, you're going to know why, because the solar wind is just no joke lately. With the magnetosphere so weakened, it's been really crazy, and it's really affecting us humans for sure. So keep all this in mind. All right, so the solar wind condition right now, the speed of the solar wind today is 468.7 kilometers per second. We do have a sunspot facing us right now, but they said pretty much it's not looking like it will flare at all, so we don't have to worry about that. They say that AR 2770 has a relatively simple magnetic field, and it really poses very little threat for strong explosions, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's see. The Oulu neutron counts coming out of Finland remain high today. There's been a 0.2% change It's actually 0.2% higher than yesterday. And like I said, the solar wind flowing from the equatorial coronal hole could reach Earth on the 8th of August. So just keep it in mind. And as far as NASA's all-sky cameras are concerned, and the all-sky fireball network, they have reported 17 fireballs over the United States today. Oh my God, I just realized today, August 6th. Holy crap, I forgot to tell my sister happy birthday. I know she doesn't listen to this, but happy birthday, Tina. If you hear me, I'm going to have to go on Instagram and tell her happy birthday. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot. It's also Tommy's birthday, my first best friend ever. We've known each other since we were babies. He was born on August 6th, and I was born on August 25th. And so we met when I was about a week old, so in September. So basically, he was around on planet Earth for almost a month before we met. And we're still good friends today. I mean, not good friends. We're not terribly close, but we are still friends, and 52 whole years. Unbelievable. He's been around on the planet for 52 years today. And my sister's been around for 48 years today. She's not quite 50 yet. But pretty crazy stuff. She married her childhood sweetheart. They're still together. They broke up for about 3 or 4 years and then got back together out of her whole life since like grade school. I love it when people's lives work out like that, when it's easy. You meet someone, you fall in love, bada boom, bada bing, you're together forever. There's never going to be a question of not being together. I think that's wonderful. My life has been absolutely complicated as hell. And I'm not jealous of her. I'm just grateful to know that she's okay and taken good care of. Like, you know, that the cosmos aligned for her well. It makes me happy to know that, because I don't know if she could have handled my life. My life has been crazy. Anyway, we have 17 reported fireballs over the U.S., and out of those, 11 were sporadic, 5 were Perseids, and 1 was an Alpha Capricornian. So, there we go. A lot of Perseids. That's nice. Meteor showers are always fun. All right, moving on to disclosurenews.it. Schumann Resonance today, the big number for today is 57 hertz frequency. That's coming out of Italy. But I'm gonna tell you guys something that's interesting coming out of Heart Math, because this is pretty interesting. Before I go to the latest data, I want to mention this. On Tuesday, August 4th, at 6 o'clock in the morning, in Alberta, Canada, the Schumann Resonance was 565 hertz frequency. You know, so this is going back 2 days, but if you were having all kinds of crazy symptoms on Tuesday, that might very well explain why. If you're sensitive to this energy. 565 hertz frequency. I mean, my God, that is nothing to sneeze at. That is really out of control. I mean, considering that for many, many decades, the Schumann Resonance was 7.83, you know, just under 8 hertz frequency. And for Alberta, Canada to be at 565 hertz frequency. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. All right. I just want to mention that also in Hafuf, Saudi Arabia on Monday, August 3rd at 1600 hour, in Saudi Arabia, they were at 136 hertz frequency. That seems to have been their peak. And I'm mentioning that now because they're back down to 0, which is all kinds of crazy, right? Anyway, the latest data, the most recent, I should say, sorry, my English flies out the window the more I'm in Spanishville. Now that I've lived in South America for 5 years, it's like, yeah, I'm losing my English. I become more and more Ecuadorian every day, and I love it. I love it here. All right. Yeah, so California, okay, at the 2300 hour on Tuesday, August 4th, California was at 167 hertz frequency. Hofuf, Saudi Arabia went back down to 0. Lithuania went up to 172 hertz frequency. Alberta, Canada was at 371 hertz frequency, so still high, but a lot less high than it was a few days before that. So Northland, New Zealand was at 77 hertz frequency, and Hulului, South Africa was at 96 hertz frequency, and this is again the Schumann Resonance scale. The heartbeat of the earth, the rhythm and pattern and heartbeat of the earth has always been 7.83, and suddenly it's been wildly fluctuating in the past couple years. So it's been well documented, and that's an awesome thing. So let's see, going right along to A Course in Miracles. You can find these lessons at the website for the Foundation for Inner Peace, and the web address is acim.org. Of course, standing for A Course in Miracles. So we've been reading these for a while. We're almost done. We are on lesson 350 out of 365 lessons. And without further ado, I'm just going to read it. So here we go. Lesson 350 is miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember Him, and through His memory, to save the world. Miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember Him, and through His memory, to save the world. What we forgive becomes a part of us as we perceive ourselves. The Son of God incorporates all things within Himself as you created Him. Your memory depends on His forgiveness. What He is unaffected by His thoughts, but what He looks upon is their direct result. Therefore, my Father, I would return to you. Only your memory will set me free. And only my forgiveness teaches me to let your memory return to me and give it to the world in thankfulness. As we gather miracles from Him, we will indeed be grateful. For as we remember Him, His Son will be restored to us in the reality of love. Miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember Him, and through His memory to save the world. Before I get into tonight's episode, and I know I'm here at the end of the introduction, I did want to say one more thing about the shadow phase of the Mercury retrograde was particularly strong, and a lot of things have transpired that is just absolute communication madness, and I'm feeling the after effects of it pretty strongly right now. during Mercury retrograde, I completely forgot, and I ordered some stuff from Wish. In fact, I think I ordered them before Mercury went retrograde. And I had talked to this guy with my the USA Valet is the name of the company, and he took over this company, and he had an address, and he changed that address, then he changed the address again, and this is the kind of stuff that happens during Mercury retrograde. And I said, I ordered the stuff 2 months ago, it's coming from China. And he's like, that's highly unusual. I'm like, no, it's not highly unusual at all. This is like one of the number one Wish is one of the number one shopping things online, and what better place to order Chinese medicine from? Some of the things I ordered was like Chinese medicine, and also some clothes. And so I was like so excited to get my stuff. And he made special arrangements, he said, that all my things would be received at the old address, because he still receives stuff at the old address, and don't worry. And I got notification in the past 3 days that like 4 things I had ordered were refused, and they're on their way back to China on a slow boat. So 6 to 8 weeks from now, I will get my money back when it reaches their warehouses again, after having been refused by the guy who he promised would receive my stuff and put in his own personal mailbox. Absolutely crazy, right? So if you have been receiving just all kinds of crazy things like this to do with communication, to do with orders or shipments, or things getting lost, or things getting refused, or, that's another, it's like what we're receiving now, energy-wise, as far as what happened in the past 6 weeks with Mercury, that is something that is still occurring, or at least we're having the aftermath and the after effects of that. Like maybe you were on an airplane and you lost your luggage, and you were told it was going to be here by now, and it's still not freaking here. For example, that's a kind of an example of this thing going on. But it's been driving me crazy. That's another thing's happened all week long. And, I was just told about my uncle's passing like 5 days ago. And it just dawned on me, the date is, today's August 6th. And he died on July 2nd. And I'm named in the will. He died on the 2nd of July. And my brother just told me he's not being buried. The funeral isn't until August 19th. Tell me that's not some crazy kind of Mercury retrograde stuff. Usually people are buried 3 days after they die. Not almost 2 months later, right? I just wanted to mention that to you guys. Like, there's some crazy stuff going on as far as the Mercury retrograde stuff. The shadow period is done. Mercury went direct a couple weeks ago. The shadow period is done, and yet we're still feeling the after effects and the aftermath of this. Anyway, I just want to bring that up because I thought it was weird, and it's not really an ascension symptom, but it's some wild stuff. I mean, I ordered like $200 worth of stuff that I have to get my money back for because they're going to refuse it, and I have to, and I sent 25 emails to Wish saying I need to be able to contact the vendor. I need to be able to tell them that this, and they said, you have to contact the vendor. I'm like, I need a way to contact the vendor. There's no way to contact the vendor. And they said, but you need to contact the vendor. And I'm like, and how am I going to tell them in Chinese? Can you please tell me in Mandarin Chinese how I can tell them to change? And they were like, well, we don't know that. I'm like, then why are you offering Chinese vendors that don't speak English? It's like going around and around and it's this kind of tediousness that has occurred over and over again. For me, at least in the past month, like, oh my God. I regret that I ever had a thought of ordering anything. Although I'm going to get some stuff. Anyway, I just want to mention that as an Ascension-ish symptom that's also happening not only to me, to other people. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to go over some Hungarian folk tales. Strange, right? Well, here's another country we yet to hear from, so woohoo! I love fairy tale nights. We do this every few weeks, so here we go, right after these messages. Hungarian Fairy Tales. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Hey, Cinnamon Bun. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence after Tulsa was a flop. Out of the blue, now suddenly you want to go ahead and ban TikTok? Didn't think this through, little Donnie, did you? Not much of a businessman. You can ban this app, there'll be a new one. Supply where there's demand. But oh my honey, got another thing coming if you think we're going down without a fight. You can try and censor us, Sparks attempt plus the Constitution's on our side. I don't know if you've heard, it's a little absurd, this thing called the First Amendment. You only know a second because I'll let you have a weapon, sit down and I'll give you a lesson. The First Amendment of the Constitution is democracy's fundamentals, like freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to peacefully assemble. So you may not like the things we say, but free speech can't be banned. And they might call you commander-in-chief, don't mean you're in command.
Breaking news. This just in. Variety just reported here at 2:40 in the morning, Ecuadorian time, that Donald Trump has signed executive orders against the applications WeChat and TikTok. He doesn't like it because, people have used TikTok to mess up his presidential campaign. But his excuse is that anything coming out of communist China is a threat to national security and we must protect our citizens. Never you mind that 150,000 people have died because he failed to do anything about coronavirus coming out of China. I mean, really though? Anyway, before we get into the fairy tales, I wanted to mention that. And I had to play Hey Cinnamon Bun another time. In fact, I might even play it again tomorrow. I might play it every week. Because, you know what? I just can't even with him. I just can't. Unbelievable, right? He thinks he can mess with people's free speech. right to peaceably assemble. Pretty much all of our rights, just to follow the new Roman Empire, history repeating itself, one more time. And we're just watching the slow motion free fall. It is what it is. All right, take a deep breath and let's get into fairy tales from Hungary. Hungarian fairy tales and folk tales are rife with fairies, princesses, and whimsical creatures. Such tales from Hungary were published by Baroness Orczy, who translated several of the region's stories for children for her old book called Old Hungarian Fairy Tales, which featured illustrations by her husband, the artist Montague Barston. Andrew Lang, noted folklorist, also included some Hungarian folk tales and fairy tales in his color fairy books. So, pretty cool. I'm getting these, by the way, from fairytales.com. FAIRYTALEZ.com. Fairytales.com. All right. So let's get into it. The first story of the evening is called The Suitors of Princess Firefly. This is from the Baroness Orczy book, originally in Hungarian. It's been translated to English, thank God. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to read it or understand it. I love Hungarian folktales. It's something that I've looked into a while. And by the way, as we are going through these fairy tales, I'm doing this for a couple reasons. Number one, so that we could keep love in our hearts and send powerful, positive energy of healing to the nations that we're talking about. I don't know how badly Hungary has been hit by COVID, to be honest. I just woke up this morning with a hankering for Hungarian folktales. But I always want to send love and light to everybody in these countries that I'm reading, their stories from. Just because it's a sweet thing to do, and people need the extra love and boost, right? But the other reason why I'm reading fairy and folk tales is A, I do believe in fairies. I do. And B, we're all in this coronavirus COVID funk. It's kind of depressing having to, leaving the house and it's just nice to have someone read to us. When we were little kids, if we were lucky, we had an adult read to us, maybe more than one. And it was a very comforting and sweet and safe feeling. So if I could bring these kinds of feelings into your life, even if you did not have that, you have it now with me. It's entertainment as well as insight into times of yesterday or yore. and it's interesting to look into how other people see the world through their fairy tales, the stories that they tell their children. So, okay, without further ado, here we go. Again, this is The Suitors of Princess Firefly. Far, very far away, and long, very long ago, when all the world was inhabited by the fairies, there lived a great and mighty king called Firefly. Now, do not run away with the idea that this firefly was in any way like the little glowing insects that are read about in natural history books. True, he had wings like those flies nowadays, and also a body something like theirs. But he was a fairy fly, and wore a most beautiful crown on his head, which at night shone as brilliantly as the stars. Then this firefly had a most gorgeous palace, which lay right in the middle of a wide river. This palace consisted of one magnificent lotus flower, and a more exquisite dwelling place it would be impossible to see. His dearest and most precious treasure was his daughter, a most lovely princess. The king was so proud and fond of her that he would not allow anyone even to look at her, but kept her hidden inside the pink petals of his beautiful lotus palace. And there the princess grew up, more and more lovely every day, till her fame spread far and wide, and all the flies and moths and beetles of the neighboring kingdoms got out their finest wings in order to go to woo and win this incomparable firefly miss. But the princess was very proud and very vain of her own beauty, and she said to her mother one day, "It is quite useless for either dragonfly or stag beetle, or in fact any of them, to try and woo me, for I will not marry anyone unless he perform some perilous task, which I will impose upon him. Then if he fails and dies in the attempt, I shall be thankful to have escaped being married to so foolish and careless a being. Or if he should not dare to attempt the task, it will be a proof that he values his life higher than his love, and is therefore not worth having." I don't know why I picked that voice. It just freaking ran out of me. Okay. As this beautiful princess was very much spoiled at home. Her mother and father, King and Queen Firefly, both acceded to her whim, and the king issued a proclamation, by which he declared that no suitor shall have the hand of his lovely daughter unless he performed the task she imposed upon him. Forthwith did Prince Gold Beetle start from his kingdom of Gladiola over the grass, and placed his heart and hand at Princess Firefly's feet. She listened to all he had to say and smiled very sweetly. "Yes," she said, "all that you say is very pretty indeed, and I am sure your proposal is exceedingly flattering. But you know the condition without which I cannot possibly marry you." "Name the condition, lovely princess," said the gold beetle. "No task, be it ever so hard, would be too much to undertake for such a prize." "You must bring me from anywhere you like," said the beautiful firefly, "one spark of fire." "Is that all you wish for?" said the gold beetle. "I fly, and before another night has descended and passed by, I will lay this spark at your feet." And away he flew, quite confident that he would be able to obtain so simple a thing as a mere little spark of fire, which the moment night came could be found in every house in the neighborhood. You will hear presently how he fared in his quest. In the meantime, the beautiful Firefly had another suitor, Lord Cockchafer. What? Oh, I did not see that coming. No pun intended. Holy crap. Lord Cockchafer. How am I going to get through this? Oh, good God. Appeared upon the scene and obtaining entrance into the Lotus Palace. He boldly asked for the honor of becoming the princess's husband. But she turned away quite disdainfully from him. I don't think I should ever care to marry you at all, she said. But I am so very, very anxious to possess a spark of fire. And I really would like to know if you would be brave enough to undertake a perilous task in order to please me. I will travel night and day, said Lord Cockchafer, till I bring you what you wish. Away he went, tripping merrily and blissfully unconscious of the fact that he was not the only one who was bent on this curious errand. Presently, Firefly had another suitor, a beautiful suitor he was, too. With his shimmering suit of green and gold, my Lord Dragonfly. He thought to dazzle her by his beauty and make her forget her foolish fancy about this spark of fire. But the princess would not listen even to him. She only smiled and said, I will marry him only who brings me this spark of fire. And away he had to go. And thus day after day there came a regular crowd of suitors round the beautiful princess. But day after day she sent them off in quest of a spark of fire. Prince Goldbeetle waited till night set in, then flew off gaily to the nearest city. He came up near a lovely little house standing in a large garden. He looked in at the window, and there he saw a large table laid out with tea and cakes, sweets and fruit, and 12 little girls and boys sitting round, having their tea on the table with a large lamp that was burning very brightly. Why, this is just what I want, said Prince Goldbeetle, and as the window was open, he flew in. The lamp burnt beautifully. It quite fascinated him. He flew quite close to it in order to get a better view of the bright flame. Oh, what a lovely beetle, he heard one of the little children say. Mother, do look. What beautiful wings it has. Oh dear, it is flying so near the lamp. I am sure it will burn its wings, said another. The gold beetle took no notice of what they said, but drew nearer and nearer to the coveted prize. There was a spark of lovely fire. How pleased the beautiful princess would be when he brought it home for her. At last he made a bold dash to catch the flame, when lo, alas, he felt his poor wings all singed and burnt. He could not fly any more, but fell fainting on the tablecloth. He heard the little children say to each other, Stupid beetle to go flying into the lamp. Now it's burnt its lovely wings. Then somebody else said, Throw that nasty thing away, or just put it out of its misery. And, well, that was the end of poor Prince Goldbeetle's life. So sad. Another suitor, a Firefly, a hawk moth, while fluttering about one evening, wandered into a room where at first he could see nothing. It seemed pitch dark. Presently he noticed a large luminous object, which turned out to be long blue flames, apparently emerging from a large bowl filled with plums. All around he saw eager little laughing faces, and every now and then little fingers would boldly make a dash into the bowl, and bring out a flaring sugar plum. Hawk Moth watched them for a time, very much interested. You see, they don't play Snapdragon in the Lotus Kingdom. Then he suddenly thought this would be a grand opportunity to steal a lovely spark of blue fire, and with it claim the hand of the proud princess. He fluttered round the bowl for some time, but no one paid any attention to him. They were all so merry pulling out the plums and eating them. It seemed so easy that Hawk Moth determined to try his luck and boldly flew into the flames. Ah, alas, poor fellow. He was burnt to a cinder. You could hardly blame him. You could hardly tell him from a raisin. What? You could hardly tell him from a raisin. One after another the suitors tried, and one after another they failed. There was a hornbug who actually one night saw a green light in a cat's eye. He tried to snatch that. But you may very well imagine how Pussy, very much annoyed, made a short meal of my Lord Hornbug. Oh my God. There's a secret message here. I just feel it. What do you guys think? A venturesome carrion beetle, having drifted towards the seashore late one night, saw some fish lying there, apparently all glowing with fire. He picked off one of the glistening scales and went away proud and happy, quite convinced that the necessary prize, the much sought for spark of fire, was at last within his grasp. He was hurrying to get to Lotus Land as fast as his legs could carry him, when he met a stag beetle, who apparently was also carrying a luminous object in front of him. And the fact of the matter was that Mr. Stag Beetle had also fallen madly in love with a beautiful but capricious princess. And he had determined to succeed in bringing her a spark of fire, even if it should cost him his wings. After several unsuccessful attempts, he had found at the foot of a large tree a funny little bit of old wood, which gave out a beautiful light, bright blue light. A beautiful little bright blue light. He approached very carefully, as he had been severely burnt several times, and you may be sure he was delighted when he found that it did not give out any heat, so he was able to carry it off without burning himself. He was hurrying off with his prize to claim the princess when he met Mr. Carrion Beetle, bent on, a similar errand. They both stopped short and glared at each other. And no explanation was necessary. Each knew where the other one was hurrying to, and each was determined to get there first. They could not both marry Princess Firefly. That was very evident. So after talking matters over for a while, they determined to fight it out till one of them remained dead on the battlefield. It was pitch dark, but the fish scale and the bit of wood were quite enough to light to kill. There were quite enough light to kill one another by. So they each put down their prize and began boxing in true beetle-like fashion. As they both were equally tall and equally strong, the fight lasted a considerable time. When lo, behold, as the first ray of dawn illumined the eastern sky, and the two combatants turned for a rest, previous to renewing hostilities, there on the ground, instead of the two tiny sparks of blue flame, lay only a nasty fish's scale and an ugly bit of wood. King Phosphorus had vanished with the dawn, Further fighting was useless. Carrion Beetle and Stag Beetle each went his own way to seek fortune elsewhere. Meanwhile, the princess in her beautiful palace waited in vain for the return of one of her many suitors. When she heard of the sad fate of Prince Gold Beetle, she wept bitterly. For though she was so proud and vain, she was not wholly devoid of feeling, and of the many who had come wooing her, she had preferred Prince Gold Beetle. When the queen saw her tears, she tried to make her forego her purpose, but all of her persuasions were of no avail, for the princess was very obstinate and would not own to being in the wrong. Suitor after suitor came, and they were one and all sent off on the same hopeless errand. One day, a most beautiful Red Admiral was on the point of committing suicide on the thorn of a rose bush. Oh my God, rose bush. What the hell is wrong with me? Let me read this again. One day, a most beautiful Red Admiral was on the point of committing suicide on the thorn of a rose bush, being so fearfully despondent on account of his non-success, when he caught sight of a luminous object underneath the very branch upon which he meant to end his life. His joy was great. What was it? Would it hurt him? He thought not. It looked so beautiful as it lay down sparkling in the sun. All round it was a hoop of gold. He went closer. No, it did not burn. Then came the question, how was he to convey it to the princess? It was far too heavy for him to carry. Whilst he was considering how he could possibly convey it, he heard footsteps. And in another second, a little child's voice exclaimed, "Why, look! Here is your diamond ring you lost. How lucky it is I have found it." And the child picked it up and gave it to a grown-up lady who was a little way off. This was the last straw for the beautiful Red Admiral, and in another minute he had committed suicide. And thus it was with one and all. Some were frightened and never attempted the task. Others were badly singed. Some died, more succeeded. And even to this day, in far-off lands where the lotus grows, we always say when we see a crowd of insects fluttering around a flame, "Ah, Princess Firefly has many suitors tonight." Okay, but do we say that though? I wonder if anyone has ever said that in the history of Hungary. Very strange, right? I told you, I kind of warned you, did I not? All right, this next one is short and strange, I'm sure. It's called The Twin Hunchbacks. Once upon a time, long, very long ago, in the midst of fairyland, there stood an extensive forest, so large that it would take many, many days to walk across it. In fact, it was an enchanted forest, for all night it was the haunt of all the little fairies in the neighborhood. Oh, they would skip and dance their whole night long. All night long and far into the next day. But the moment the noonday sun streamed down upon them, they would all run away and go to bed inside the water lilies and the pink lotus, and leave fairy rings and the grass to mark the place of their nightly revels. There was a lovely glade in this forest with a large pond in the middle and dark trees around, which was a specially favored spot with all the fairies and elves of the forest. 3 little fairies, particularly, there were, who used to come here every morning at sunrise and enjoy themselves to their heart's content. They were especially fond of a dance they had invented. which consisted in holding hands and twirling round, singing all the while, Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty. Well, one day a little hunchback woodcutter, isn't that always the way, who was out very early in the morning gathering chopsticks, suddenly came upon a lovely glade. And there before him he saw the three little fairies dancing in a ring, laughing and singing Humpty Dumpty, so merrily that he threw down his bundle of, I'm not going to say that word, we're just going to say twigs, fire twigs, and joined in their dance and their song with great energy. He danced so amazingly and amused them so much by turning back somersaults that they thought it was the greatest pity in the world that so brisk a little man should be spoilt by having a great hump on his back. So they took some water from the pond in little golden cups, and each fairy emptied her own tiny vessel on the hunchback, singing the while, Go away, ugly hump. It just sneaks up on you, doesn't it? It just does. Then they again joined hands and danced round him till his hunch had quite disappeared. Whereupon he romped more gaily than before, and was so glad and merry he could hardly sing Humpty Dumpty any more for laughing. After that he kissed each of the fairies and ran home as fast as his little legs would carry him, singing all the way Humpty Dumpty, springing in the air and jumping over every obstacle. So glad was he to have got rid of his ugly hump. Now this little hunchback had a twin brother just as ugly and deformed as he had been himself. And when the now straightened little man came in at the cottage door, his brother was very much astonished to see him skipping about without his hunch. And he naturally asked how he had managed to get rid of his ugly deformity. Oh, said the woodcutter, it happened in a very curious way. I was out chopping sticks very early this morning in the woods, when I suddenly saw three dear little fairies before me dancing in a ring and singing Humpty Dumpty. They were tripping it so merrily, sounds like it, that the desire seized me to join in their dance. So I boldly took them by the hand and joined in the ring, singing with them, Humpty Dumpty. They seemed to like this very much, for when they got tired of dancing, they took some water from the pond and pouring it over my back, they sang, Go away, ugly hunch. And, well, sure enough, my ugly hunch has gone. The twin brother was very much surprised at this strange story he had just heard. Naturally enough, he did not quite care about being known as the hunchback woodcutter, whilst his brother looked so erect and handsome. In fact, he was not only jealous of his brother, but most anxious to be as good looking. He therefore thought the best plan would be to at once seek out the fairies and get them to be as kind and as useful to him as they had been to his brother. He therefore started off at a run for the enchanted glade, determined to get rid of his hump, as his brother had done. Unfortunately, he was so afraid of being late that he ran himself quite out of breath, and was tired by the time he reached the three little fairies, who were dancing and singing as gaily as ever. The poor little fellow could neither sing nor dance, and had not sufficient breath left to cut a caper or turn a back somersault. This disappointed the little fairies very much. Presently they all joined hands, taking the little hunchback with them, and began their special dance, singing Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty. But he got so confused and giddy from turning around so fast that instead of singing Humpty Dumpty, as the little fairies did, he would add, in his efforts to please them, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. And kept on saying, sat on a wall, which so annoyed the fairies that when they took the water out of the pond in their little golden cups and poured it over his back, instead of singing go away ugly hump, they sang Hunch get twice as big as before. Which it did immediately, and was then such a terrible size that it was frightful to look at, and so heavy that he had to crawl on his hands and knees all the way home. That's the end of the story. Oh my God, I told you, these are just absolutely strange. Wow. Just, these are odd, man. Okay, let's see here. I'm looking for another one. Let's see, there's one called, oh yeah, this is way too long. The Three Lemons. You guys could go to fairytaleswithaz.com, just fairytales.com, and read these on your own if you feel like it. Alright, we're going to read one now called The Gold Bread. It says it's only 8 minutes long. We shall see. This is by Edouard René Lefebvre de la Boule, and it says it was originally in Hungarian. Alright, here we go. Once upon a time there was a widow who had a beautiful daughter. The mother was modest and humble. The daughter, Marienka, was pride itself. She had suitors from all sides, but none satisfied her. Isn't that always the way with Hungarian folktales? The women are never, ever satisfied or happy with potential suitors. I wonder if if it's not a thing in their country. If maybe the women are very strong, maybe strong-minded. That would be interesting to find out, right? If that's a part of the culture. Anyway, back to the story. The more they tried to please her, the more she disdained them. One night, when the poor mother could not sleep, she took her beads and began to pray for her dear child, who gave her more than one care. Marienka was asleep by her side as the mother gazed lovingly at her beautiful daughter. Marienka laughed in her sleep. What a beautiful dream she must have to laugh in this way, said the mother. Then she finished her prayer, hung her beads on the wall, laid her head on the same pillow with her daughter, and fell asleep. "Ah, my dear child," she said the morning, "what did you dream last night that you laughed so?" "What did I dream, Mamma? I dreamed that a nobleman came here for me in a copper coach, and that he put a ring on my finger set with a stone that sparkled like the stars. And when I entered the church, the people had eyes for no one but the Blessed Virgin and me." "Oh, my daughter, that was a proud dream," said the mother, shaking her head. But Marienka went out singing. The same day a wagon entered the yard. A handsome young farmer in good circumstances came to ask Marienka to share a peasant's bread with him. The mother was pleased with the suitor, but the proud Marianka refused him, saying, "Though you should come in a copper coach and put a ring on my finger set with a stone that sparkled like the stars, I would not have you for a husband." And the farmer went away storming at Marianka's pride. The next night the mother waked. The next night the mother waked, took her beads, and prayed still more earnestly for her daughter, when, behold, Marianka laughed again as she was sleeping. "I wonder what she's dreaming," said the mother, who prayed, unable to sleep. "My dear child," she said the next morning, "what did you dream last night that you laughed out loud?" "What did I dream, Mamma? I dreamed that a nobleman came here for me in a silver coach, and that he offered me a golden diadem. And when I entered the church, the people looked at me more than they looked at the Blessed Virgin." "Hush, you are blaspheming. Pray, my daughter, pray that you may not fall into temptation." But Marianka ran away to escape her mother's sermon. The next day, a carriage entered the yard. A young lord came to entreat Marianka to share a nobleman's bread with him. "It is a great honor," said the mother, "but vanity is blind. Though you should come in a silver coach," said Marianka to the new suitor, "and should offer me a golden diadem, I would not have you for a husband." "Take care, my child," said the poor mother. "Pride is a device of the evil one." Mothers never know what they're saying, thought Marianka, and she went on shrugging her shoulders. The third night the mother could not sleep for anxiety. As she lay awake praying for her daughter, behold, Marianka burst into a loud fit of laughter. "Oh," said the mother, "what can the unhappy child be dreaming now?" And she continued to pray till daylight. "Oh, my dear child," she sat in the morning, "what did you dream about last night?" "You will be angry again if I tell you," answered Marianka. "No, no," replied the mother, "tell me." "I dreamed of a noble land with a great train of attendants came to ask me in marriage. He was in a golden coach, and he brought me a dress of gold lace. And when I entered, and when I entered the church, the people looked at nobody but me." The mother clasped her hands. Marianka, half dressed, sprang from the bed and ran into the next room to avoid a lecture that was so tiresome to her. The same day 3 coaches entered the yard. One of copper, one of silver, one of gold. The first was drawn by 2 horses, the second by 4, and the third by 8, all caparisoned with gold and pearls. From the copper and silver coaches alighted pages dressed in scarlet breeches and green jackets and cloaks, whilst from the same globe. What? That's not what it says. What the hell? I just got hit by a bunch of radiation. Might be solar winds already. Woo! I was wide awake and all of a sudden I fell asleep. What the hell? Alright. Did I just say golden globe? What the hell? Where was I? Okay. Yeah, they were comparisoned with gold and pearls. From the copper and silver coaches alighted pages dressed in scarlet breeches and green jackets and cloaks, while from the golden coach stepped a handsome nobleman all dressed in gold. He entered the house and, bending one knee on the ground, asked the mother for her daughter's hands. What an honor, thought the mother. My dream has come to pass, said Maryanka. You see, mother, that as usual I was right and you were wrong. She ran to her chamber, tied the betrothal knot, and offered it smilingly at a pledge of her faith to the handsome lord, who on his side put a ring on her finger set with a stone that sparkled like the stars, and presented her with a golden diadem and a dress of gold lace. The proud girl ran to her room to dress for the ceremony, while the mother, still anxious, said to the bridegroom, My good sir, what bread do you have to offer my daughter? Among us, said he, the bread is of copper, silver, and gold. She could take her choice. What does this mean? Asked her mother. But Maryanka had no anxiety. She returned as beautiful as the sun, took her lover's arm, and set out for the church without asking her mother's blessing. The poor woman was left to pray alone on the threshold, and when Maryanka returned and entered the carriage, she did not even turn round to look at her mother or to bid her a last farewell. The 8 horses set off at a gallop and did not stop till they reached a huge rock in which there was a hole as large as the gate of a city. The horses plunged into the darkness, the earth trembled, and the rock cracked and crumbled. Maryanka seized her husband's hand. Don't be alarmed, my fair one. In a moment it will be light. All at once 1,000 lights waved in the air. The dwarves of the mountain, each with the torch in his hand, came to salute their lord, the king of the mines. Maryanka learned for the first time her husband's name. Whether he was a spirit of good or of evil, at least he was so rich that she did not regret her choice. They emerged from the darkness and advanced through the bleached forests and mountains that raised their pale, gloomy summits to the skies. Firs, beeches, birches, oaks, rocks, all were of lead. At the end of the forest stretched a vast meadow of grass, of which was silver, and at the bottom of the meadow was a castle of gold inlaid with diamonds and rubies. The carriage stopped before the door, and the king of the mines offered his hand to his bride, saying, My fair one, all that you see is yours. Maryanka was delighted, but it is impossible to make so long a journey without being hungry, and it was with pleasure, therefore, that she saw the mountain dwarves bring in a table, everything on which glittered with gold, silver, and precious stones. The dishes were marvelous, side dishes of emeralds, roasts of gold on silver salvers. Everyone ate heartily except the bride, who begged her husband for a little bread. Bring the copper bread, said King of the Mines. Maryanka could not eat it. Bring the silver bread, said he. Maryanka could not eat it. Bring the gold bread, he said at length. Maryanka could not eat it. My fair one, said the King of the Mines, I am very sorry, but what can I offer you? We have no other bread. The bride burst into tears. Her husband laughed aloud. His heart was of metal like his kingdom. Weep if you like, he cried. It will do you no good. What you wished for, you possess. Eat the bread that you have chosen. It was thus that the rich Maryanka lived in her castle, dying of hunger, and seeking in vain for a root to allay the torture that was consuming her. God had humbled her by granting her prayer. 3 days in the year, the rogation days, when the ground half opens to receive the fruitful rain sent by the Lord, Maryanka returns to the earth. Dressed in rags, pale and wrinkled, she begs from door to door, too happy when anyone throws her a few crusts, and when she receives as alms from the poor what she lacks in her palace of gold, a little bread and a little pity. was a strange story. They're all a little weird, and it like just sneaks up on you, doesn't it? All right, I'm going to go check for another one. Hold on. All right, guys, the final story of the evening is a prince after my own heart. The name of the story is The Prince Who Would Seek Immortality. This is from Andrew Lang's fairy books, originally in Hungarian, of course. Once upon a time, in the very middle of the middle of a large kingdom, there was a town, and in the town a palace, and in the palace a king. This king had one son, whom his father thought was wiser and cleverer than any son ever was before. And indeed his father had spared no pains to make him so. He had been very careful in choosing his tutors and governors when he was a boy, and when he became a youth, he sent him to travel, so that he might see the ways of other people, and find that they were often as good as his own. It was now a year since the prince had returned home, for his father felt it was time that his son should learn how to rule a kingdom which would one day be his. But during his long absence, the prince seemed to have changed his character altogether. From being a merry and light-hearted boy, he had grown into a gloomy, thoughtful man. The king knew of nothing that could have produced such an alteration. He vexed himself about it from morning till night, till at length an explanation occurred to him. Yes, the young man, he was in love. Now, the prince never talked about his feelings. For the matter of that, he scarcely talked at all. And the father knew that if he was to come to the bottom of the prince's dismal face, he would have to begin. So one day after dinner, he took his son by the arm and led him into another room, hung entirely with the pictures of beautiful maidens, each one more lovely than the other. "My dear boy," he said, "you are very sad. Perhaps after all your wanderings, it is dull for you, here all alone with me. It would be much better if you would marry, and I have collected here the portraits of the most beautiful women in the world, of a rank equal to your own. Choose which among them you would like for a wife, and I will send an embassy to her father and ask for her hand." "Alas, your majesty," answered the prince, "it is not love nor marriage that makes me so gloomy, but the thought, which haunts me day and night, that all men, even kings, must die. Never shall I be happy again till I have found a kingdom where death is unknown. And I have determined to give myself no rest till I have discovered the land of immortality." The old king heard him with dismay. Things were worse than he thought. He tried to reason with his son and told him that during all these years he had been looking forward to his return in order to resign his throne and its cares, which pressed so heavily upon him. But it was in vain that he talked. The prince would listen to nothing, and the following morning buckled on his sword and set forth on his journey. He had been traveling for many days, and had left his fatherland behind him, when close to the road he came upon a huge tree, and on the topmost bough an eagle was sitting, shaking the branches with all his might. This seemed so strange and so unlike an eagle that the prince stood still with surprise, and the bird saw him and flew to the ground. The moment its feet touched the ground, he changed into a king. "Why do you look so astonished?" he asked. "I was wondering why you shook the bough so fiercely," answered the prince. "I am condemned to do this, for neither I nor any of my kindred can die till I have rooted up this great tree," replied the king of the eagles. "But it is now evening, and I need work no more today. Come to my home with me. Be my guest for the night." Well, the prince accepted gratefully the eagle's invitation, for he was tired and hungry. They were received at the palace by the king's beautiful daughter, who gave orders that dinner should be laid for them at once. While they were eating, the eagle questioned his guest about his travels, and if he was wandering for pleasure's sake or with any special aim. Then the prince told him everything, and how he could never turn back till he discovered the land of immortality. "Ah, dear brother," said the eagle, "you have discovered it already, and it rejoices my heart to think that you will stay with us. Have you not just heard me say that death has no power, either over myself or any of my kindred, till that great tree is rooted up? It will take me 600 years' hard work to do that. So, marry my daughter. Let us all live happily here together. After all, 600 years is an eternity." "Ah, dear king," replied the young man, "oh, but your offer is very tempting. But at the end of 600 years, we should have to die, so we should be no better off. No, I must go on till I find the country where there's no death at all." Then the princess spoke and tried to persuade the guest to change his mind, but he sorrowfully shook his head. At length, seeing that this resolution was firmly fixed, she took from a cabinet a little box which contained her picture, and gave it to him, saying, "As you will not stay with us, prince, accept this box, which will sometimes recall us to your memory. If you are tired of traveling before you come to the land of immortality, open this box and look at my picture, and you will be borne along, either on earth or in the air, quick as thought or swift as a whirlwind." Wait a minute, I think I just... Okay, yeah, I was right. That's weird. All right. It didn't make sense to me, and I thought I skipped a line, and I didn't. Anyway, the prince thanked her for her gift, which he placed in his tunic, and sorrowfully bade the eagle and his daughter farewell. Never was any present in the world as useful as that little box, and many times did he bless the kind thought of the princess. One evening it had carried him to the top of a high mountain, where he saw a man with a bald head, busily engaged in digging up spadefuls of earth and throwing them into a basket. When the basket was full, he took it away and returned with an empty one, which he likewise filled. The prince stood and watched him for a little, till the bald-headed man looked up and said to him, "Dear brother, what surprises you so much?" "I was wondering why you were filling the basket," replied the prince. "Oh," replied the man, "I am condemned to do this, for neither I nor any of my family can die till I have dug away a hole of this mountain and made it level with the plain. But come as it is almost dark, I shall work no longer." And he plucked a leaf from the tree close by, and from a rough digger he was changed into a stately bald-headed king. "Come home with me," he added. "You must be tired and hungry, and my daughter will have supper ready for us." The prince accepted gladly, and they went back to the palace, where the bald-headed king's daughter, who was still more beautiful than the other princess, welcomed them at the door and led the way into a large hall and to a table covered with silver dishes. While they were eating, the bald-headed king asked the prince, how he had happened to wander so far. And the young man told him all about it, how he was seeking the land of immortality. "Well, you have found it already," answered the king. "For as I said, neither I nor my family can die till I have leveled this great mountain, and that will take full 800 years longer. Stay here with us, marry my daughter. 800 years is surely long enough to live." "Oh, certainly," answered the prince, "but all the same, I would rather go and seek the land where there is no death with us at all. No death at all." So next morning he bade them farewell, though the princess begged him to stay with all her might. And when she found that she could not persuade him, she gave him as a remembrance a golden ring. This ring was still more useful than the box, because when one wished oneself at any place, one was there directly, without even the trouble of flying to it through the air. Like, that's trouble. That's hilarious. The prince put it on his finger, and thanking her heartily, he went on his way. He walked for some distance, and then he recollected the ring and thought he would try if the princess had spoken truly as to its powers. "I wish I was at the end of the world," he said, shutting his eyes. And when he opened them, he was standing in a street full of marble palaces. The men who passed him were tall and strong, and their clothes were magnificent. He stopped some of them and asked in all 27 languages he knew what was the name of the city, but no one answered him. Then his heart sank within him. What should he do in this strange place if nobody could understand anything? He said. Suddenly his eyes fell upon a man dressed after the fashion of his native country, and he ran up to him and spoke to him in his native tongue. "What city is this, my friend?" he inquired. "It is the capital city of the Blue Kingdom," replied the man. But the king himself is dead, and his daughter is now the ruler." Well, with this news the prince was satisfied, and begged his countrymen to show him the way to the young queen's palace. The man led him through several streets into a large square, one side of which was occupied by a splendid building that seemed borne up on slender pillars of soft green marble. In front was a flight of steps, and on these the queen was sitting wrapped in a veil shining silver mist, listening to the complaints of her people and dealing out just Okay, a 5-minute read, my Aunt Fanny. That was weird. A couple things. First of all, I started that hour at 2:40, did not stop the recording for more than a minute to look up another story. And I have 30 minutes worth of missing time. I hope that all I did was read on this, but it's now 4:09. 2:40 to 3:40 is an hour. I didn't stop. I didn't take a break. I have like a half hour missing time just now. I don't even remember what I read. I think I just might have been abducted again. Oh my God. Okay, well, we'll see. I don't like looking for, do I have any puncture wounds in my neck? I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to the story. I'm going to reread that last sentence. That was weird because it said that this was a 5-minute story. And I was at minute 46 thinking I'd finish about, well, worst case scenario, 56 after. And it was, well, longer than that, obviously. All right, well, here we go. Oh my goodness. Let's finish this story and get on with it. Okay. In front was a flight of steps, and on these the queen was sitting wrapped in a veil of shining silver mist, listening to the complaints of her people and dealing out justice. When the prince came up, she saw directly that he was no ordinary man, and telling her chamberlain to dismiss the rest of her petitioners for that day, she signed to the prince to follow her into the palace. Luckily, she had been taught his language as a child, so they had no difficulty in talking together. The prince told all his story, and how he was journeying in the search of the land of immortality. When he had finished, the princess, who had listened attentively, rose and, taking his arm, led him to the door of another room, the floor of which was made entirely of needles, stuck so close together that there was not room for a single needle more. "Prince," she said, turning to him, "you see these needles? Well, know that neither I nor any of my family can die until I have worn out these needles in sewing. It will take at least 1,000 years for that. Stay here, share my throne. 1,000 years is long enough to live." "Certainly," answered he. "Still, at the end of 1,000 years, I should have to die. No, I must find the land where there is no death." The queen did all she could to persuade him to stay, but as her words proved useless, at length she gave it up. Then she said to him, "As you will not stay, take this little golden rod as a remembrance of me. It has the power to become anything you wish it to be when you are in need." So the prince thanked her, and putting the rod in his pocket, he went his way. Scarcely had he left the town behind him when he came to a broad river which no man might pass, for he was standing at the end of the world, and this was the river which flowed round it. Okay. Not knowing what to do next, he walked a little distance up the bank, and there over his head a beautiful city was floating in the air. He longed to get to it, but how? Neither road nor bridge was anywhere to be seen. Yet the city drew him upwards, and he felt that here at last was the country which he sought. Suddenly he remembered the golden rod which the mist-veiled queen had given him. With a beating heart he flung it to the ground, wishing with all his might that it should turn into a bridge, and fearing that, after all, this might prove beyond its power. But no. Instead of the rod, there stood a golden ladder, leading straight up to the city of the air. He was about to enter the golden gates when there sprang at him a wondrous beast, whose like he had never seen. "Out, sword from the sheath!" cried the prince, springing back with a cry, and the sword leapt from the scabbard and cut off some of the monster's heads. But others grew again directly, so that the prince, pale with terror, stood where he was, calling for help, and put his sword back in the sheath again. The queen of the city heard the noise and looked from her window to see what was happening. Summoning one of her servants, she bade him go and rescue the stranger and bring him to her. The prince thankfully obeyed her orders and entered her presence. The moment she looked at him, the queen also felt that he was no ordinary man, and she welcomed him graciously. and asked him what had brought him into the city. In answer, the prince told all of his story and how he traveled long and far in search of the land of immortality. "You have found it," she said, "for I am queen over life and over death. Here you can dwell among the immortals." 1,000 years had passed since the prince first entered the city, but they had flown so fast that the time seemed no more than 6 months. There had not been one instance of the 1,000 years that the prince was not happy, till one night he dreamed of his father and mother. Then the longing for his home came upon him with a rush, and in the morning he told the queen of the immortals that he must go and see his father and mother once more. The queen stared at him with amazement and cried, "Why, prince, are you out of your senses? It is more than 800 years since your father and mother died. There will not even be their dust remaining." "Well, I must go all the same," he said. "Well, do not be in a hurry," continued the queen, understanding that he would not be prevented. "Wait till I make some preparations for your journey." So she unlocked her great treasure chest and took out 2 beautiful flasks, one of gold and one of silver, which she hung around his neck. Then she showed him a little trap door in one corner of the room. And she said, "Fill those silver flasks with this water, which is below the trap door. It is enchanted, and whoever you sprinkle with the water will become a dead man at once, even if he lived 1,000 years. The golden flask you must fill with the water there," she added, pointing to a well in another corner. "It springs from the rock of eternity. You have only to sprinkle a few drops on a body. It will come back to life again, as if it had been 1,000 years dead." Or even if it had been 1,000 years dead. So the prince thanked the queen for her gifts, and bidding her farewell, went upon his journey. He soon arrived in the town where the mist-veiled queen reigned in her palace, but the whole city had changed, and he could scarcely find his way through the streets. In the palace itself was all still, and he wandered through the rooms without meeting anyone to stop him. Now at last he entered the queen's own chamber, and there he lay, with her embroidery still in her hands, fast asleep. He pulled at her dress, but she did not awaken. Then a dreadful idea came over him. He ran to the chamber where the needles had been kept. Yeah, but it was quite empty. The queen had broken the last one over the work she held in her hand, and with it the spell was broken too, and she lay dead. Quick as thought, the prince pulled out the golden flask and sprinkled some drops of the water over the queen. In a moment she moved gently, raising her head, and opened her eyes. "Oh, my dear friend, I'm so glad you awakened me. I must have slept a long while." "You would have slept all of eternity," answered the prince, "if I hadn't been here to awaken you." At these words the queen remembered about the needles. She knew now that she had been dead, that the prince had restored her to life. She gave him thanks for her heart for what he had done, and vowed she would repay him if ever she got the chance. The prince took his leave, set out for the country of the bald-headed king. As he drew near the palace, he saw that the whole mountain had been dug away, that the king had been lying dead on the ground, his spade and his bucket beside him. But as soon as the water from the golden flask touched him, he yawned and stretched himself, and slowly rose to his feet. "Oh, my dear friend, I am so glad to see you," cried he. "I must have slept for a long while." "You would have slept for all eternity if I hadn't been here to waken you up," answered the prince. And the king remembered the mountain and the spell and vowed to repay the service if he ever had the chance. Further along the road which led to his old home, the prince found the great tree torn up by its roots, and the king of the eagles sitting dead on the ground, with his wings outspread as if for flight. A flutter ran through the feathers as the drops of water fell upon them, and the eagle lifted his beak from the ground. He said, "Oh, how long I must have been asleep! How can I thank you for having awakened me, my dear good friend?" "Well, you would have slept for all of eternity if I had not been here to awaken you," answered the prince. Then the king remembered about the tree and knew he had to be dead, and promised, if ever he had the chance, to repay the prince what he had done for him. At last he reached the capital of his father's kingdom. But on reaching the place where the royal palace had stood, instead of the marble galleries where he used to play, there lay a great sulphur lake, its blue flames darting out into the air. How was he to find his father and mother and bring them back to life if they're lying at the bottom of that horrible water? Now he turned away so sadly, and he wandered back into the streets, hardly knowing where he was going, when a voice behind him cried, "Stop, Prince! I've caught you at last. It's 1,000 years since I first began to seek you." And there beside him stood the old white bearded figure of Death. Swiftly he drew the ring from his finger, and the king of the eagles, the bald-headed king, and the mist-veiled queen hastened to his rescue. In an instant they had seized upon Death and held him tight, till the prince should have time to reach the land of immortality. But they did not know how quickly Death could fly, and the prince had only 1 foot across the border when he felt the other grasped from behind, and the voice of Death calling, "Halt, now you are mine." The queen of the immortals was watching from her window. She cried out to Death that he had no power in her kingdom, that he must seek his prey elsewhere. "Quite true," answered Death, for but his foot is in my kingdom, and that belongs to me. "At any rate, half of him is mine," replied the queen. "And what good can you do with the other half?" What good could that do you? Half a man is no use, either to you or to me. But this once I will allow you to cross into my kingdom. We will decide by a wager whose he is." And so it was settled. Death stepped across the narrow line that surrounds the land of immortality, and the queen proposed the wager, which was to decide the prince's fate. "I will throw him up into the sky," she said, "right to the back of the morning star. And if he falls down in the city, then he is mine. But if he should fall outside his walls, he shall belong to you." In the middle of the city was a great open square, and here the queen wished the wager to take place. When all was ready, she put her foot under the foot of the prince, swung him up into the air. How the hell does she do that? She sounds incredibly strong. Up he went, high amongst the stars, and no man's eyes could follow him. Had she thrown him up straight? The queen wondered anxiously. For if not, he would fall outside the walls, and she would lose him forever. The moments seemed long while she and Death stood gazing up into the air, waiting to know whose prize the prince should be. Suddenly they both caught sight of a tiny speck no bigger than a wasp, right up into the blue. Was he coming straight? No. Yes. But as he was nearing the city, a light wind sprang up and swayed him into the direction of the wall. Another second and he would have fallen half over it, when the queen sprang forward, seized him up in her arms, and flung him into the castle. Then she commanded her servants to cast Death out of the city, which they did, with such hard blows that he never dared to show his face again in the land of immortality. Speaking of immortality, my God, the last little bit of that story took 17 minutes. Unbelievable. This is maybe the longest episode of Metaphysical Soul Speak ever. Well, I'm not going to go back and redo it now. Now you have the story of the land of immortality that practically took 1,000 years to read. All right, well, now it's 4:25. Unbelievable. Well, there you go. I'm late, and that's why. I don't know what happened, but that 5-minute story, and I checked it. In fact, I checked it twice, and it was a very short story when I checked it twice. And I feel real strange. I feel like I hopped a timeline where that 5-minute story ended up being a half-hour story. But I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Metaphysical Soul Speak, the podcast. And that's it. I want to thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, sharing, that's not a word, sharing, and forwarding everything and anything you can about Metaphysical Soul Speak. Help me get the word out. I would really love to make a living from my passion. I think we all deserve such a wonderful treat, don't you? So please help me in my quest while you listen to my show for free. Always will be, because I just want to be here for you guys. So thank you for being here for me, those of you who have already helped spread the news about my show. I love you guys so much. I'm grateful we're on this journey together. This ascension journey has been wonderful, albeit long, but I'm grateful for it. I'm glad we're in the 5th dimension together now. A lot of you have been with me since the beginning. I want to thank you for that. But a lot of you are brand new, and I want to thank you for that. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for having your faith and confidence in me and Metaphysical Soul Speak, the podcast. So that's it. That's all she wrote. Tomorrow is the end of the week, and therefore that means we're going to do another episode of Earth Changes News and the weekly Weird World News Report. So I will be back tomorrow with all unique and original programming, just like always. And that's it. I'm signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the Holy 5th Dimension. Until next time, guys, peace. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.